Hello and welcome to the SBK World Cup Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Levy, and I'm joined as ever by Gary Pallister, Lee Sharpe, and Tom Williams. If you're looking for the best odds on the World Cup, check out SBK. You can get £30 in free bets by signing up and depositing and betting £10. 18 plus only, and please gamble responsibly. Now, gents, there's only one place to start, of course. That is the England-France quarter-final. France going through 2-1. It was a real kind of heartbreak moment for this England side. I'm going to start with you, Gary. Overall, just what were your thoughts on the game? Did England deserve to go through? Was it just a case of the better side ultimately finding the quality in the better moments? What do you reckon?
No, I thought we were the better side on the night. I thought it was going to be a bit more even. I thought we not dominated large parts of the game, but I thought we were the better side. I thought we looked more controlled. I've got to say, I'm echoing a lot of people's thoughts on the referee. I thought he lost control of the game, got a lot of big decisions wrong, and really shouldn't have been in charge of a game of that magnitude. Saying that, Giroud scores the winner. He's having a great tournament. France's leading goal scorer now. Terrific header, albeit it did, I think, ricochet off Harry Maguire's head. His experience told. But yeah, like everybody else, frustrated, disappointed. We have a great chance to get back into it. What was going through Harry Kane's head when he's taking his second penalty against his goalkeeping mate in Larry. Just a lot of things. That little bit of luck that seems to desert us in major competitions has deserted us again, and I think the whole country felt frustrated and annoyed by a whole host of things that went on during that game.
There are a lot of instances to discuss, and I'd be interested to get Tom's view on the French angle, but also as a kind of semi-neutral on the England team. But Lee, I'll just come to you first. Your overall thoughts on the game. Do you think it was a fair result? Obviously, the final score was 2-1. England had, I think, a strong penalty shot in the first half that wasn't given. They also had there was a foul on Saka, I thought, in the build-up to the first French goal. We can discuss that too. And, of course, Harry Kane missing that penalty to level it at 2-2 in the second half. Overall, did you think that, England should have won this game? Or do you think that ultimately the French, as I kind of said earlier, were just the kind of world champion side that knew how to eke out the most of the moments they got?
No, I thought we were by far and away the better team. We dictated the pace of play. We had most of possession. I know France defended pretty well, and we didn't really create or didn't test Lloris that much during the game. But I thought we were by far a better way the team. I think maybe we could have made a few more changes a little bit earlier, just to freshen things up and change things a little bit. We have that sort of little gripe against Gareth Southgate that he doesn't make changes too often and probably not at the right times. I think it was a foul on Saka. I think we should have probably had a penalty with Harry Kane in the first half. And then you would generally put your mortgage on Harry Kane at least hitting the target for the second penalty. And when he smashes it 30 feet over the bar, I don't think anybody could believe it. It was an incredible moment. But no, I thought we deserved to win. I thought we were the better team. I thought we were really unlucky. I'm devastated for the players.
Tom, I'd like to get your view. I mean, kind of all jokes aside, you're a Welsh fan, so you have, not quite the same biases that we might have. What was your view on the game overall and the refereeing in particular?
Yeah, I mean, it sort of pains me to say it as a Welshman, but I agree entirely with what Gary and Lee have said. I mean, England were clearly the better team. They dominated possession. They had far more shots. They had more shots on target. They expected goals. They edged that as well quite comfortably. But as you said, in your intro, it did just come down to those, those few moments. And, France were very fortunate. There was clearly a foul on Bukayo Saka in the build-up to Aurelien Tchouameni's opening goal. I thought the referee did lose control of the game. I thought some of his decisions were really strange in the second half. And I think, although you could see the exasperation of England's players, and there was one moment in particular where Jude Bellingham was just sort of head in hands, looking at the referee, how on earth are you giving these decisions? I thought England managed to sort of kind of put that to one side almost and remain in the game. who could have foreseen Harry Kane, putting a penalty over the crossbar at that moment of the game? Having taken the first penalty so well, having always been so cool from 12 yards in his career up to that point. I think England can look back on that game with a lot of pride in how they played, with a lot of grievances about the refereeing, and also with a sense of frustration at having played so well, but once again come away empty-handed.
It's interesting that Giroud, his winning goal, it proved to be the winning goal, was his 53rd for France. He's now their all-time leading goal scorer. Harry Kane's penalty that he scored was his 53rd for England. He levelled Rooney as the all-time leading goal scorer, and that penalty that he missed would have made him the outright goal scorer. It wasn't the first thing on everyone's minds when he missed it, but it was another part of the narrative, if you will, behind that. Kane, of course, known for being a pretty deadly finisher from the spot, although I think his England record might be about 16 in 20, so it's kind of just above average probably. But nonetheless, he's certainly a guy you'd expect to put that away. I actually think Kane played pretty well, obviously that miss aside. Who else stood out for you guys? I'll start with you, Gary. Who in the England side or in the French side was the man of the match, the player of the match, or just people who stood out for you?
I thought Stones looked very calm and assured and used the ball well coming back. There was a lot of talk about our centre halves going into the game. I think Maguire and Stones have played really well during the tournament. Foden eventually, I thought he struggled in the first half to get really involved and to make any kind of impression on the game. I thought he came into the game the second half. Saka looked the threat. I don't know if was he injured? Is that why he came off? I'm not sure quite.
There was some suggestion off the pitch.
Sorry, Dan?
There was some suggestion that he'd just taken a knock. I agree with you. I thought Saka, maybe not quite in the first half, but in the second half.
Yeah, second half.
Yeah, he was really kind of terrorising Hernandez, and they looked really uncomfortable, really scared of him. And him going off, I thought, did change the momentum a bit, but perhaps I'm seeing that through an Arsenal lens. But I thought Saka was one of the standout players. But yeah, some suggestion he might have been injured. But carry on, Gary. Who else caught your eye?
Yeah, no. So and listen, Bellingham again for a kid of that age in a game of that magnitude again, standing out. Henderson's attitude, getting people working alongside him, chasing balls down, pressing. I thought he had a really good game. I don't think anybody played badly. I didn't. I was a bit surprised maybe at the Sterling thing coming on. Would you not have thought about more Jack Grealish then? Because Raheem had been away, his mind's been taken off the World Cup for that period of time. I would have been more inclined to use Jack, I think. But no, I thought it was a really good performance from the team as a whole. They grew into the game. The longer the game went on, I think the stronger they got and the more belief they had that they could. Well, I think they just felt as though they were better than the French, and the time was going to come. And I think if we'd have equalised, I think we'd have went on to win the game. And I did say beforehand, I thought the winner of that would win the World Cup. I ain't so sure. I think the French have got a real problem defending. I mean, some of their stuff, some of their decision making in that game was awful. And if the player like that against Morocco might not ask the same questions. Obviously, I think they're going to sit there and play like they played against Portugal and Spain and sit back and try and hit them on the break. But there's so much rash defending going on from the French that I think that's their Achilles heel. And they I thought the winner would come from them to England and France, but now I'm not so sure.
Interesting. Lee, what did you make of the England players and who stood out to you?
Well, I thought it was just a really good all-round team performance, if I'm honest. I think they never particularly looked that troubled defensively. Like I said, they had most of the possession during the game. I think, again, the midfield of Bellingham, Rice and Henderson looked really strong and dominant. I do think Saka in the second half was causing all sorts of problems. And we looked very comfortable in the game. But, it's just the first goal. I'm not sure he's not even had a run up at it. He's took one step and hit it. I'm not sure whether the keeper was a little unsighted or it seems a long way out to be scoring from there with hardly any run up and just a strike from a standstill, really. So, that sort of shook us a little bit, but we came back from that. They still look strong. They kept the composure. They moved the ball around really well. And I agree with Pally. The defence from France looked really shaky. They were making bad decisions, trying to jump in, trying to get in front of players. We should have had another penalty and a free kicker here and there. So, no, I think an all-round good team performance.
Tom, what was the view in France, and what was your view on the French performance?
I think the feeling in France is that Didier Deschamps seems to have rediscovered the formula that took France to victory at the 2018 World Cup, in the sense that France are rarely all that impressive. They tend not to dominate their matches. They tend to allow their opponents to have a lot of the ball, but they just find a way each time of squeaking through. You think back to the 2018 World Cup, that remarkable game against Argentina in the last 16, which they win 4-3, which was right on a knife edge until the final whistle. The semi-final against Belgium, played off the park by Belgium, end up winning 1-0, a header from a set piece by Samuel Umtiti. Belgian players absolutely furious after the game, can't believe that they've been turfed out of the tournament having played so well. And it put me in mind of how crestfallen England's players were on Saturday, having played so well but come unstuck. And there was a lot of emphasis prior to the tournament on some of the problems that France had, the players they were missing through injury, some of the off-pitch controversies that were hanging over the squad. And Deschamps appears to have found that formula again. It's not all that pretty, it's not always that impressive, but France do just seem to have that ability to hang in there in tough moments. And I think something that I've noticed quite a lot in the last couple of days is there's this idea in France that Didier Deschamps is just a lucky guy, that as talented a footballer as he was and that as talented a coach as he is, he's just someone who has always benefited from good fortune. And there again, the Harry Kane penalty miss 6 minutes from the end of full time, when France have only just got their noses in front again, just seems to sort of confirm that. So yeah, I think the longer the tournament goes on, the more that sense that France are slipping back into the 2018 routine, sort of take shape. I think the one real difference between now and then is that the depth in France's squad this time around is nothing like what it was in 2018. There were much more options on the bench 4 years ago. You saw that against England. He waits till I think it was the 79th minute to make a change, brings on Kingsley Coman for Dembele like for like, and that's it. And when those second string players have been given their opportunities in the tournament so far for France, as in the final group game against Tunisia, which they lost, they've generally been really disappointing. So yes, it's comparable to what they're doing in 2018, but because there aren't those options on the substitutes bench anymore, it feels like the margin for error is even smaller than it was 4 years ago.
All right, well, we should talk about that semi-final against Morocco for Les Bleus, but before we do that, I want to just finish off this England section by talking about Gareth Southgate. Now, Lee, I know you expressed a little bit of scepticism about whether he's really the right man at the start of the tournament. Gary, Lee, we'll start with you, Gary. What do you think is the future for this team? And do you think whatever that future is, they'll be doing it with Gareth Southgate at the helm?
Listen, I think the future's really bright. Obviously, we've got a lot of players at a good age who now been blooded in their first tournament. They've equipped themselves very well. We'll know there's nothing to fear. And going back into the Euros, I think we'll be all the better for it. As for Gareth, it's interesting, isn't it, to hear him talking about he's the difficult time after that 4-0 hammering at Molineux against Hungary. How disappointing he was in the reaction, but that's football. 4-0 at home off Hungary. You'd expect a bit of stick. But it's whether he's got the energy to go again. I think it does take a lot out of you. I think the scrutiny from the press takes a lot out of you. You've heard from managers over the years talk about that. Once you're in that job, you are right under the spotlight, and it's a very difficult job to do. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Certainly Gareth isn't in that respect. I think he's got a lot more credibility after this, because not so much that I think it's the way that we've played. I think we've take away the USA game. We've been quite dominant. Players with ability have made impacts. And he's got to be sorely tempted to go again. But he needs to get away from that environment. He needs to sit down with his family and have a chat to his staff around him, and see whether he has got the focus, the energy, the will to go and do it again. And only Gareth will know that. But in terms of the players, I think they love Gareth. I think they respect him for what he's done, the way he's changed this England team over the years. It's not just about picking players from big teams; it's players in form. He's not afraid to go to Southampton or Leicester or wherever and pick players who are in form. So yeah, he's going to get home, put his feet up, and then he'll have a serious think about what he wants to do. I'm kind of in the camp that I hope he stays.
Lee, what's your view? And are there any other candidates who are tempting?
Well, I think that's part of the issue, that there's no standout candidate to take over from him if he does step down or be asked to leave. I think in tournaments like this, it's all about inches. It's all about the small things, and I think he gets some of the small things wrong. I agree with Pally in the fact that the players love him. I think he's got a team spirit there and a bond there that no other England manager has had. But it's the small decisions, and I think the changes he makes are sometimes not the right ones. I don't think he makes the changes at the right time. I think sometimes he's a bit negative, and I just wonder whether tactically he has the nous to. We're looking at an England team now that has some of the best players in the world. There's very few players from other teams that will get into that England team, so we should be winning tournaments. And I think he's come close in the last two. We're going to this one full of expectancy. I know we didn't have a great build-up with the Nations Champions League or whatever it's called, but he's got some unbelievable players, and I just think tactically sometimes his decision making is not as good as it could be. I wouldn't mind seeing him there for another couple of years and taking us into the Euros, because I don't think there's anybody else that can do the job he's doing at the moment. But I just do wonder that if we are ever going to win a major tournament with Gareth at the helm.
Just quickly before we move on, one other aspect of this game was the kind of Kane versus Lloris showdown. Obviously, he took 2 penalties against his clubmate goalkeeper. There's a lot of chat about how he doesn't actually take penalties against Lloris in training. But either way, what is that like when you face clubmates in an international game of that magnitude? I mean, do players actually talk to their coach about, hey, this guy, I play with him every week, he tends to do this? Do you kind of ignore them in the lineups, or are you still chummy with them? Like, what's that like? Go to you, Gary, first.
Yeah, listen, you'll sit down, when you go and play for your country, you use every bit of information you can gather to talk about your teammates if they're playing in the side against you. I'm sure that Gareth was talking about Lloris to Harry Kane, but yeah, you did sort of look at that and looking at Harry's face to see how he must have been thinking, right, especially after that first penalty, he put it where he mostly puts his penalties. What must have then been going through his head? Again, it's bluff, double bluff. What are you thinking? And I think he's tried to put it in the same side, hasn't he? And got it completely wrong. But yeah, I think when you're away with your country, you'll pass on every bit of knowledge you can about teammates, strengths, weaknesses, and that's going to be helpful for your team. As he's took that penalty, I'm looking at his face and I'm trying to imagine what he's thinking. This is his teammate. It's interesting you say that, Dan, that he doesn't take penalties against him. Maybe he foresaw that in a crystal ball or something, that he was going to be coming up against Lloris. And that's why he maybe stays away from doing that. But Lloris knows it's his favourite side, that he's put the first one in, and then to do it the second time, he'd be disappointed he doesn't hit the target. But yeah, it's not, as we've said many times, it's not the first time we failed on penalties, is it?
Lee, it's easy to kind of project this stuff when it's not really there, but it did feel like he just put a little bit extra on the ball because he's thinking about the fact that Lloris knows his penalty taking so well.
Oh, he's definitely just gone for sheer power. I think he's tried to put it straight down the middle, high in the roof of the net. I don't know whether that's a confidence or a bottle thing, knowing you're playing against someone who sort of knows you. And I mean, I know he doesn't take penalties against Lloris in training, but I'm sure Lloris has watched him take penalties against other goalkeepers and seen where he puts it a lot of the time. So is it worth picking another penalty taker? There were a few candidates out there that could have taken penalties. But like I said before, you know, you'd put your mortgage on Harry Kane at least hitting the target, and to miss by so far was incredible, and something that we none of us were expecting from Harry Kane. You know, you're expecting to hit the target from 12 yards out, and he picked the right spot. He wanted to go straight down the middle, but he's just, I don't know, leant back, tried to hit it too hard, tried to put too much on it, and the rest is history.
All right. Well, in terms of the grand history of quarterfinal exits for England, I think this is probably one of the better ones. Let's look ahead to the semi-finals then. Coming up on Tuesday, we have Argentina up against Croatia. Kind of hard not to talk about Messi in this context. Tom, this is, you know, again, perhaps his last chance at World Cup glory, almost certainly. Argentina come into this as favourites. What's your view on that Argentina-Croatia game? Croatia, of course, getting past Brazil with another penalty shootout win in the quarters.
Yeah, I mean, two teams who had quite similar experiences in the quarterfinals, in the sense that, you know, both of their games went to penalties, very hard fought victories, and I think that Argentina game against the Netherlands in particular was so ill tempered, was so mean spirited. You know, the clashes during and after the penalty shootout. You know, during the second half, Leandro Paredes firing the ball into the Netherlands bench, and all the substitutes being up in arms, and even after the game, you know, something we're not used to seeing from Leo Messi. He clearly, you know, was pretty fired up himself. We saw him, you know, getting up in Louis van Gaal's grill and having a bit of a pop at him and Edgar Davids, you know, trying to get in between them. And then afterwards, he's speaking to Argentinian TV, and I think it's Wout Weghorst who sort of wanders past, and Messi tells him, you know, to sort of clear off. And I think you get a sense of just how much this means to him, of how much this means to, you know, to the whole Argentina squad. And you know, we know that Argentina is an exceptionally proud football nation. That the World Cup means a huge amount to the country. You see that with a number of supporters who are there in Doha. I mean, every World Cup that there is, you get thousands and thousands of Argentina fans, you know, making the effort to go there. And I think the Messi factor just turns that up even more, because there's a sense that Messi deserves to win the World Cup. I think most neutral football fans would quite like to see him lift the World Cup. And obviously in Argentina, you know, that they all want the same thing. And you do just get this sense that the kind of the level of tension is exceptionally high in this Argentina squad. And I think it'll be a really, really hard game against Croatia. You know, Croatia showed against Brazil that they are a very solid team. They don't mind having to, you know, go to extra time and penalties. They've won enough penalty shootouts in recent tournaments to know that is a way of winning that suits them quite well. You know, the only thing that Croatia don't really have is a goal scorer. You know, they've obviously struggled to put games to bed in this tournament, but it's not been because they haven't played well. It's because, you know, they make chances and they've got no one to put those chances away. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a really tight game, and I think if that Argentina-Netherlands quarterfinals anything to go by, it could be quite a niggly narky one as well.
Okay, let's do a quick fire round because we've gone quite long on the England-France quarterfinal, understandably. So, Tom, who will go through, Argentina or Croatia?
Argentina.
Gary?
Argentina.
Lee?
I'm just going to go against these two and say Croatia.
Okay, all right. And then in the next game on Wednesday, France against Morocco. Tom, this will obviously be huge for so many reasons. Morocco, the first African side to get to a World Cup semi-final. You know, there was of course a real momentum behind this team. They've not conceded a goal to an opposition player since their new coach came in, took over. What do you think of that particular showdown? Are France just going to be too good for Morocco, or are they going to find a way to get past them as they did Spain, Portugal, and also Belgium?
I think it'll be another really tight game. And I think something we've seen at this tournament, you look at all 4 semi-finalists and none of them play particularly flamboyant football. You know, the teams who've got this far in the tournament are the teams who just know what it takes to win tournament matches, whether that's keeping clean sheets and winning on penalties, whether that's riding your luck and, you know, scoring goals, you know, during your strong periods in games. I think Morocco, there's a bit of a Greece at Euro 2004 vibe to them in the sense that, you know, they are exceptionally solid defensively, as you said, only conceded 1 goal since the start of the tournament. And with each result they get, it just gives them even more confidence. You know, France are obviously favourites for this, but then it's not like France have been, you know, blowing teams out of the water. You know, most of their progress at this tournament, France has been down to sort of digging in deep and sort of battling through. You know, France is still to keep a clean sheet, as I was saying before. They don't have that strength in depth that they had perhaps in 2018. So I don't think they're as strong as they were 4 years ago. I think Morocco will back themselves to sit deep, to frustrate them, you know, as they did against Spain, as they did against Portugal. I think one potential issue for Morocco is physically, they are starting to lose players. Naya Faguer, Roman Saiss, both big doubts for this. That's your 2 starting centre-backs. Saiss obviously started against Portugal, but came off at the end. You know, we saw the strapping around his thigh. Sofiane Amrabat, the holding midfield, he's been one of the stars of the tournament. He seems to be playing on one leg and was exceptional again against Portugal. But you just find yourself thinking, how long can they keep doing this? Is there going to be a point where this, you know, remarkable endurance that they've been showing game after game is just going to break? But yeah, I think this will be another really, really close one.
I mean, you say about France not being able to keep a clean sheet. If they don't in this game, they could be heading out, right? Because under Walid Regragui, Morocco haven't conceded a goal apart from 1 own goal.
Yeah, completely. And that will be a concern for France, because this isn't a France team that creates a huge amount of chances. We saw that against England. They basically wait for their moments. You know, that they look to score when they're having a positive moment in a game. And also that lack of options on the bench. Yes, you can bring on Kingsley Coman if you want another dribbler, but there are no goals on the France substitutes bench. You know, all of those attacking players, Marcus Thuram, Randall Colomwani, there's lots of talent there, but there's very little international know-how. And this Morocco side defensively are such a hard nut to crack. So yeah, I think France will have their work cut out.
Okay, let's do a quick fire round again. Tom, who's going through?
I'm going to say France, just.
Lee?
I'm going to say, well, I picked an African team to do well. I obviously picked Senegal, the wrong one, but I'm going to go with Morocco.
Okay, Gary?
Well, after listening to Tom telling me about the problems that Morocco have got, I'm going to go with France.
Okay. All right. Lee is the man taking on the extra risks here with a prediction for the Morocco-Croatia final. If you do prove to be right, Lee, you could look pretty smart. Okay, let's move on to looking sharp. Lee, we want to get your player who has impressed you since we last spoke. Of course, that was a week ago, so there's plenty to choose from. Who stood out for you in the last week?
Do you know what? I think I'm going to have to go with Olivier Giroud. I think someone who has probably wouldn't even been playing if Benzema had stayed fit, and has come in and has become the top goal scorer for France, has popped up with goals when you least expect it, out of nowhere, and has just had an incredible tournament so far. So I'm picking Giroud.
Giroud, 4 goals in this World Cup. Only Mbappe has scored more with 5. He's level with Messi. I mean, he's actually in with a chance of being the World Cup top goal scorer for this tournament. So a good shout there from you, Lee. Okay, listen, let's move on to Take on Pally. This is Tom against Gary. Now, listen, last time out, Gary had a 7-6 lead, okay? And the questions were Morocco v Spain, who would win? Tom said Morocco would go through, and Gary said Spain. So that is a point for Tom. England, France, both teams to score. You both said yes, so a point each. 8 all. And then Netherlands v Argentina, over 2.5 goals. Gary said no, but Tom said yes. And Tom has taken...
Turning it round.
Tom is coming from behind to win at the moment. 9-8 for Tom as we go into the penultimate round. I think it's the penultimate round. So 3 more bets for you, and you can tell me which one you back. Argentina v Croatia, both teams to score, Gary.
Yes.
Tom?
Tempted to just be really cynical now that I've got the lead and just completely hedge my
I know
bets.
what you think. Well, the question's coming to you next first, though, Tom. Know what you're thinking.
But no, I'm gonna say no, just to keep it interesting.
Okay.
I worry about Croatia's problems putting the ball in the back of the net a little bit.
Tom not parking the bus there. He's trying to flood forward at every opportunity. France v Morocco, over 2.5 goals. Tom?
No.
I think that's probably quite an easy one, but who knows? Gary?
Yeah, I've got to go no. I can't see more goals than that.
Okay. And Salford v Port Vale, EFL Trophy. Who will win?
What? What's that got to do with the World Cup? Salford? Seriously?
Come on, guys. Salford v Port
Salford
Vale.
versus who? Port Vale. That's a local derby, isn't it? More or less.
There you go.
And what was the bet?
Who will win?
Who will win? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Producer Adams thrown in a curve.
You know what? I'm going with the Vale. I think they're in slightly better form than Salford.
I thought you said the Bill. Sorry, you're going
the
with
Vale.
Port Vale. Okay.
The Vale.
Yeah. Okay. Tom?
Absolutely no idea about either of these teams, but I'll go for Salford just to keep it interesting.
Good on you.
It was Salford, right?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Okay, good.
All right, guys. Listen, the next round is Gary versus Lee quiz. Who's the sharpest pal? This is a Gareth Southgate special. Okay. So 5 questions, each worth a point. Whoever has the biggest tally at the end will be the winner. I haven't totted them up yet, so I don't know who's winning. I think it's Gary off the top of my head. First question is, I think you won last week though, Lee. How many England caps as a player does Gareth Southgate have? We'll go Gary first.
$53.
Lee?
Oh, I was going to say 57.
Are you saying 57?
Yeah.
That is exactly how many caps he has.
Oh, that's got to be worth. It's got to be worth a bonus point.
He's fired it right into the top corner. Okay. How many England caps as a manager does Gareth Southgate have? I have to go to Lee first.
Oh, as a manager. As a manager. Oh my God. I don't know. Maybe 42.
Gary?
Who gets closest, Dan, or what?
Well, I guess it has to be.
I am going to go
42.1.
Yeah. I was going to say, well, I'm not going to say what I was going to say, but now I'm going to go 50.
50. That's. I respect what you're doing there because you wanted to.
Yeah, I was going to say 62 or 64.
Okay. Well, you'd have won anyway because it's actually 81.
81?
Which is a lot more than I thought.
In 5 years?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to think now. I mean, obviously, the World Cup 2018. So was it 2017 or was it?
I think it was 20. I'm sure I read the other day he's been in charge 5 years. So that's a lot of games per year, isn't it? Which you wouldn't have thought of. But...
Yeah, I mean, there's Nations League going deep in 3 tournaments, qualifiers,
yeah.
Friendlies.
Yeah. 81.
Okay. Which 2 league clubs did Gareth play for during his international career? Which 2 league clubs did he play for to Gary?
No, he didn't. Trying to think when he came to Borough in. Yeah, his career was over there. So Palace and Villa.
Lee?
I'll say Villa and Borough.
He's nailed it.
Oh, Pally!
It wasn't the Borough. No way. He had to play when he was
I
at
didn't
Palace.
think-
Sharpie's flying.
You played for Middlesbrough, Gary. What's going on?
He played. He came here in. When did he come to Middlesbrough? 2001.
Did you play with him?
No, I quit that year. I'd quit in the summer, and he was brought in the summer.
So you're the reason he got to play then, Pally?
He was the Pallister replacement.
God, you know, I remember sitting with Gareth in his first cap, and we did a press conference together, and he asked 1,000,001 questions, what it was like playing for England, what it was this, He was so eager to get as much information as he could. I could have sworn he was at Palace then, but he must have made the move. Wow. Interesting now.
We're going to move on to a famous moment in his career, in his playing career. Which nation did Gareth Southgate miss a penalty against in the Euro 96 semi-final? Lee.
I have no idea. Euro 96 semi-final.
Ooh.
It wasn't Italy, was it? I think it was.
Gary?
Which year was it?
96.
You mentioned years.
Sorry? 1996. Yeah, the semi-final at the Euros.
Who did he miss a penalty against?
In the
That was
shootout.
Germany.
I mean, yeah, it was Germany.
Yeah, I don't know.
Lee.
Do you know what? As soon as I said that, I realised I remember seeing it, yeah.
Him and Piercy. And then
Okay.
Bats missed one in the next one, didn't he? The 98.
What are the scores here, actually? So we got 1-0 to Lee, 1-1, 2-1 Lee. So it's 2-2. So this is the decider for this round. How many goals have Lee and Gary Pallister scored combined in matches where Gareth Southgate also played? That's a real curveball, that. I'll go through that one more time. How many goals have Lee Sharpe and Gary Pallister scored combined in matches where Gareth Southgate was also playing? Lee first.
Ooh.
So how many goals have
Right.
have me and Pally scored
You
together?
a few against Villa, didn't you, son? In what Premier League? Any matches? Internationals?
Any match. Any match.
Ooh.
Unless it was like at training, and then we wouldn't know. Where I'm sure you scored loads.
I think I know how many games I've scored in games. Yours is a bit difficult, Sharpie.
So I just need a number on how many you think you guys both scored in all the games you played where Southgate also played.
I might say none.
Okay. Gary? Gary's got that cynical look on his face where he's thinking.
I know I've scored one in a game where because he was marking me from a free kick. Was Gareth. So it's all about how many. So Sharpie doesn't think he's ever scored against Gareth Southgate. Interesting. Now, I know you scored a couple of times down at Villa. Palace. You would have played games against Palace. You ever scored against Palace? Do you know what? I'm just going to go one.
Well, Gary's winning this round, but he's wrong. It's actually two. And they were both against Crystal Palace. And it was in both legs of the FA Cup semi-finals. Gary scored both of them.
Oh, I scored in the first one. Oh. Hey, Lord. I forgot about. I was only thinking about the second one. Do you know? I saw that game. The first game, and we were getting beat, and it's coming up in like extra time, and I'm thinking, well, who scored for us? And it was me. And I'd forgot all about it. I knew I'd scored I'd forgot I'd scored in the first game. That's what ending the football does for you.
All right, gents, listen, we'll leave it there. We're back on Thursday to talk about those semi-finals and look ahead to the World Cup final, which is, of course, coming up this weekend on Sunday. Thanks for watching, and do give us a like and subscribe on whatever platform you're watching on. And we'll be back on Thursday. Thanks for joining, and we'll speak to you then. Cheers.